where you scream to watch that, watch this, and I'll dive down through this hairy flesh.
Hi, and welcome to Watch This. I'm CJ Johnson. Mother is the new film out in cinemas worldwide from Darren Aronofsky. He of Black Swan, Pi, Requiem for a Dream, Noah, The Wrestler, and The Fountain. If you want to see a spoiler-free review of that movie, you can find it elsewhere on Skippy TV. But I am joined by Jim Flanagan, and we are going to talk about the film as a spoiler episode. So only stay tuned if you've seen the film or you don't care that we spoil it for you.
Please, come in. Hello.
Hello. He's a stranger. We're just gonna let him sleep in our house. Hello.
Hello.
Did you know he had a wife?
Jim, what did you think of Darren Aronofsky's new film, Mother?
Look, I really enjoy and have enjoyed all of Mr. Aronofsky's films. I admired this without enjoying it as much as some of his other films. He doesn't make boring cinema. This film, to me,
Mother.
is Mother!
Yep.
Exclamation mark.
Small M, exclamation
Small M,
mark.
exclamation mark. No punctuation between the two.
So it's kind of like this, Mother!
Yes, that's. I think that's spot on. It's look. This to me is somewhere between the Fountain and Requiem for a Dream. There's a lot
Okay.
of I loved it technically.
Yep.
I found it pretty empty. Aronofsky talked a lot, and when he was interviewed when it premiered at Venice, about how quickly he wrote this, and I think he wrote it in 5 days.
Yeah.
And this is this is a million times quicker than he'd ever generated a screenplay before.
I've heard a lot of interviews with him, and unfortunately, he's got his interview points that he's hitting. So I've heard the same interview 5 times in
Right.
5 different places, But that's one of the things he hits. He's
Yeah.
like, I wrote this in 5 days. He says, I wrote it in a fever dream,
Yep.
which the moment you start telling us about your writing process in that regard, like I was in a fever dream, that's pretentious,
Well,
because you wrote it. You didn't write it in a fever dream.
That's kind of my problem with this film. And there's as soon as about half an hour through, I started thinking about this quote. Nietzsche didn't like poetry. He was really good mates with Wagner. He loved music. He loved opera. He loved theatre. He hated poetry. And whenever anyone said to him, "Hey Nietzsche, why do you hate poetry?" he'd say, "Because poets muddy their waters to make them appear deeper than they are." And that, to me,
Is
was
Aronofsky.
this. Well, that's not Aronofsky. I really, really enjoy all of his films, and I really enjoyed this. I don't think this is
Okay.
a film to be really taken seriously at face value.
Okay.
It's so surreal and burlesque and over the top.
It is burlesque.
But there's 2 hours of largely brilliantly executed, hyper surreal smoke and mirrors, and I think kind of very little beneath that very, very pretty, alluring surface.
Okay, that's interesting. I think there's actually quite a lot to read in it. The more I think about it, the more I'm affected by what he was trying to say, and to some degree to what he's actually managed to say.
He said repeatedly
Yeah.
that, if you kind of scratch the surface of this film and peel it back, it kind of collapses in a heap, and it's very much this instinctive,
Yeah.
primal, abstract visualization that he had very quickly that he wanted to chuck on the screen.
Yeah.
But then he spent 2 years producing it. So,
Yeah, which is very quick in terms of the scale of this
Yeah.
production. They had
Yeah.
to build that house twice.
Yeah.
They had to cast those people and make sure their schedules. That's quick from page one, from blank page
Yeah.
to screen. 2 years for a film of this magnitude with these people.
Yeah.
That's really quick.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So here's a question for you. So for people who haven't seen this film,
They've seen it. Spoiler.
Okay. All right. So
we
it is
don't need
about
to, yeah.
it is about a couple who live in this house, and whatever location scout found that house should be given a medal. It's a magical setting. And as the film progresses, he's an artist. He's not having much chop in getting
he's a
word
poet.
to paper. Sorry, he's a poet.
Yeah.
Exactly. He's not having much luck in getting pen to paper. The Jennifer Lawrence character is hugely supportive. And basically, he treats her increasingly badly as the film progresses and becomes more and more expressionistic and abstract. And ultimately, he chews her up, as he has clearly multiple previous women afterwards. And I was really left scratching my head at what else we were looking at other than a woman treated and women treated badly. And he is this figure of public adulation, and the public and his audience forgive him for everything.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's so many things to unpack about this movie. He is now in a relationship with Jennifer Lawrence that they started on the set of this film.
Aronofsky. Yes, no.
Aronofsky is 48 and she's 26. So there's 22-year age difference.
Yep.
The film, to varying degrees or others, is about an age difference within a relationship.
And they mention it repeatedly throughout the film.
Javier Bardem is obviously in his late 30s or early 50s. Jennifer Lawrence is obviously in her 20s. So they are them, theoretically, because Javier Bardem is the celebrated poet who's having writer's block, and she is the young woman trying to build the house around him. So if this film is directly personal, and yet it can't quite be, because I gather their relationship began making this film together and he'd already written it.
So the script had already been done.
But yeah, so then it's this tiger chasing its tail kind of thing about like which comes first, chicken or the egg, and how much did he adapt it to reflect he and Lawrence's relationship as they were shooting? Who knows? But if you do look at Javier Bardem as him, and Javier Bardem's writer's block, and Javier Bardem as celebrated poet, and Javier Bardem as being adored and having this cult-like status as this incredible artist who needs basically to deny having children and basically to not care about his partner and not even care about his house because all he needs is to write and then to be adored, then this film is a pretty scathing indictment of Darren Aronofsky.
Yeah, sure.
But I think there's other readings to be had of the film outside of that one.
So what are they? Because I sort of realised at about the 45-minute mark that, okay, this is what it's about, and it's this reflection on the nature of celebrity and public adulation and the partners and the people left behind by that. I just didn't really care or find that particularly interesting once.
I think the celebrity thing is absolutely going on. And I think not only the cult of celebrity, I think what he does is he looks at celebrity and biblical figures, because Javier Bardem's character is called him in the credits with a capital H, and everyone else has a little letter. So that's obviously the Jesus reference. So he draws a parallel between celebrity, Jesus, and other cult figures, including political figures. The film gets increasingly political in the second and the third act.
religious in its iconography and imagery.
And says they're all cults.
You
know, so he says the cult of celebrity isn't just, that's not just a phrase, an empty phrase. They're all cults. If you are successful in any of those fields, politics, art, or religion, they are all cults. And essentially he's drawing this big thing about the extreme danger of any sort of adulation, especially in the modern age where the cult of celebrity has gone off the rails and has become idiotic. But I think the thing that he does really well that I haven't heard many people comment on is essentially the film is one big metaphor for social media and even perhaps more specifically your mobile telephonic device, because she is constantly getting interrupted as she's trying to do things. And it's like the notifications coming through on your phone. Your phone is constantly buzzing, telling you this, that, likes, and that is what is happening to her in the house. That house is devoid of technology. It is deliberately an 18th century house, you don't see electronics everywhere. They have a landline
that is repeatedly requested to be used and used.
So you're not seeing mobile phones because the whole film is a mobile phone. The whole film, every time someone arrives, it's buzzing, it's notifying, it's annoying you. And that's sort of what's going on, I think. And I am increasingly disturbed by social media and the internet. I'm increasingly deciding that this is a world I wish I could shave some technology off of. And this film, to me, really gets what I'm worried about at the moment, which is that social media and internet technology is something that we can't take back and is actually making our lives increasingly anxiety-filled. And this film is nothing if not a whole load of anxiety. I think he is the best casting in the film. I think she's great, and we will need to talk more about her, particularly how he shoots her. But I think Javier Bardem is perfect in the film because I do think he's playing the metaphor. I don't think he's playing a real person. I think he gets it, and he's playing the metaphor. And I think he has developed into this, let's say he's 50. I don't know how it is. Let's say he's 50. He has developed into this incredibly rugged, very masculine, very handsome middle-aged.
Yeah. Sure.
He's tall,
Yeah.
he's big, he's imposing, he's handsome, he's got sensitive eyes, but, you know, a rugby body.
Yeah.
And I think he is perfect in this role because he needs to be that. Everything I just described, I think, is what this poet is.
Yep.
I got to say, the thing that annoyed me about the film, which is intrinsic to the film, is that the film is entirely shot either behind her, in front of her face, or over her shoulder. The entire film.
Yeah. I really like the uncomfortableness of the way it's shot. Actually,
It started to drive me nuts. I just wanted to get her head out of the way.
Right. Okay.
It made me
let's-
claustrophobic.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that because I have issues with the way that this film moves. It has this first reel, which is very much this kind of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf-esque kind of traditional dramatic setup with the Ed Harris and Michelle Pfeiffer characters, who I really liked in this film.
They were great.
I really missed them when they left, actually. And then to me, there's this kind of tonal consistency issue that Aronofsky has, where he very much shifts tone in the entire second half to something much more expressionistic and abstract. And I mean, it's quite a gradual transition. But I don't really feel he made up his mind what kind of storyteller he was in this film. And my problem with the casting and the characters is that there's a real shift. And I agree that you know he's kind of playing this sort of everyman artist role. But but that's really only clear in the second half. In the first half, he's sort of playing a character, and you don't really know his name. And so is Jennifer Lawrence. But there's this quite drastic tonal shift in the second half, where clearly they increasingly become kind of larger, more abstract metaphors for human life, and I just didn't go with it. It was just too clunky for me as a viewer.
Fair enough. This is how I read that. The second half of the film is highly deliberately the same as the first half of the film, but completely outsized. It doubles down, triples down, quadruples down on the first half. So the first half, this house is invaded by two strangers that turn out not to be strangers, but actually part of the cult of celebrity that worship this poet. And then their sons come and everything is fucked up and it's bad and Jennifer Lawrence is ostracized, et cetera, et cetera. And then that is repeated, but this time, in the second half of the film, but this time it's not 2 people or even 4 people if you include the sons, but it's, you know, 100 people.
10,000.
Yeah, and the whole house gets destroyed and her life gets destroyed and her baby gets ripped out and murdered and eaten. But I think that's deliberate because the thing is, what you think as an audience member, is this time around Javier Bardem is not going to make exactly the same choices, but the second time around he makes exactly the same choices. And it shows you that this cult of worship, when you are the one being worshipped, is too powerful and that you can't escape.
Yeah.
And so the second time around, he not only sacrifices his domestic bliss, but he sacrifices his girlfriend and he sacrifices his child.
He does. And I think it gets very, very silly at that point, actually.
It does get silly.
I really lost
Gloriously
it.
so.
Well, that's exactly right. And look, you know, the Javier Bardem character gets some things wrong. You know, you sympathise increasingly clearly with a Jennifer Lawrence character.
Yeah.
He invites a bunch of groupies over and they eat the baby.
They eat the baby.
You know, so you can understand why there isn't some increased tension in their relationship. He wasn't to know they hadn't had lunch on the way over. It's not his fault. So things increasingly go off the rails, and then all of a sudden, Kristen Wiig turns up in another of her
as his
horribly
publisher.
underwritten roles that she's just seemingly doing at the moment. I really worry about her career.
No, because she didn't do this for that role.
No,
she
but
did this to be
what
part of this, whatever this circus
What's
was,
she
you know.
doing there? She just
I thought
sort
she
of-
was good.
Really?
I thought she was
Wow.
good. This film, it's so undisciplined.
It absolutely is undisciplined
as a
and
script
everything.
because it's everything. It's all Aronofsky. I mean, it's just Aronofsky's mind. Like, it is a true auteurist work.
Sure.
And it's just all his
But I-
anxieties. He's like, and I'm fucking worried about, you know, Trump's America. So that's in there with all the cops coming in and
see-
acting like military. And
I guess that's my problem with this film, ultimately. I think he's a hugely talented filmmaker, but there's none of the auteurist discipline of a
there's no
film
discipline.
like Black Swan to me. There's no unity of form and content in this. There are a whole bunch of ideas splattered onto a whiteboard with some fantastic visuals, and I love the sound design of this film. It has no score. It has this fascinating sound design, which is almost sort of David Lynchian in the way that it kind of merges kind of traditional scoring and sound design. It's really, really good. There's too much interesting filmmaking going on in this, even though I think it's wildly ill-disciplined and a little empty a lot of the time. There's too much really, really interesting kind of powerhouse visual storytelling going on here to really dislike it. I don't think it works. It's a kind of fascinating failure to me.
I think it works. I think it totally works. I got to tell you two things. Well, I tell you something, then ask something. In the critic screening I saw, 3 people simultaneously worked out as Jennifer Lawrence was going through her labor pains, I guess you call it. You know, the moment before she gives birth.
Yeah.
So they didn't see the birth. They obviously felt her birth was coming. So they walked out at that moment while she was going through, when she was about to give birth.
Yeah.
Now they were together. So it wasn't this spontaneous, it wasn't that moment made 3 individuals. They were together.
Yeah.
But I've never been at a critic screening where people have walked out before. So that was interesting.
And multiple as well, which is interesting because that's exactly what happened at the Venice screening as well. There were, and when it concluded, there was apparently a 50-50 split between boos and a standing ovation.
Yeah.
Which is kind of this film in a nutshell, really.
It is that film in a
It's
nutshell.
intensely divisive,
and
I think there's a lot to like
and
a lot to
deliberately
dislike.
so. It's
Yeah,
a provocation.
Sure.
There's no way he looked at the final cut of this and said, "Everyone's got to love this," you know.
I just ultimately think it's pretty empty. It's fascinating, but not terribly.
Let me ask you,
interesting.
Assuming that there is reasons and metaphors and analogies going on within the whole thing. The Gleason brothers play brothers. Domhnall and the other Gleason, Brian Gleason,
play the sons.
Play the sons, so they're brothers.
Yeah.
And that happens at the conclusion of the Ed Harris, Michelle Pfeiffer story before we get into the sort of more sort of Trump story.
Yeah.
Besides Cain and Abel, can you see any other deeper layers of meaning within those 2 brothers? Because that was the only section of the film that I don't know why it's there. Everything else I can sort of understand what's being said.
Well, it's sort of a sort of signifier for the sort of kind of Louis Buñuel kind of Ken Russell mega violence that's sort of to come later in the film, I guess.
Yeah, because until that point, you're right. The only violence is social violence.
Yeah.
It's like Michelle Pfeiffer being like oversharing or daytime drinking or being rude, but
no, I didn't see any other resonance other than that. The only thing I did like, I remember when you and I reviewed and talked about Ben Wheatley's High Rise and how we both agreed that there was this really rush sort of descent into the maelstrom of chaos. This film does have a really interesting, gradual, meticulously constructed kind of slow build into the total chaos that the last half an hour really descend, which is relentless.
Yeah.
But there is a really nice, meticulously built transition from the kind of initial domestic blissful setup to that sort of total disintegration of order. And I love the character of the house in this film. It has these sort of abstract sci-fi amoebas that Lawrence sees in the woodwork whenever she kind of goes past it. And the house is sort of the 3rd main character of the film.
But that frustrated me. Because
it doesn't really go anywhere.
No, it doesn't go anywhere. That frustrated me. The fact that the house is this living, horrific organism. Yeah. Well, it doesn't get explained. That gets to the root of actually one of my problems with the film.
Not much gets really explained in this film. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that.
And this is the thing. The whole film is a mystery that essentially remains one. So you can think about it endlessly and you can think about moments, but there's no unifying tie-up moment explaining, for example, the fact that the house is sort of breathing and bleeding and potentially breeding. And I do think, and particularly I'm trying to cast myself as sort of someone who doesn't see 2 films a week but who goes to the cinema once in a while, I'm worried that your common audience member is going to spend so much time hoping and waiting and wondering and trying to decipher the mystery that they're going to stop watching the film. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? They're
yes.
not going to enjoy the individual moments because they're waiting for this. They're waiting. The surfer waiting for the wave that never comes.
Oh, well, and that was very much the case with the public screening of this that I saw. And there were clearly about 25-30% of the audience were Jennifer Lawrence fans.
Yeah, I know. That's
And-
weird, isn't it?
Yes.
Like when I saw Joy, there were all these teenagers watching Joy, kind of being like, huh?
Well, and I find it really curious the way that the studio is promoting this film because they're at least partially promoting it as this sort of conventional Jennifer Lawrence haunted house horror film.
Oh, really?
I think so.
That's hysterical.
It's well, if you see the film, it's hysterical,
Yeah.
and there was clearly a significant portion of the audience that were scratching their heads in silence throughout a lot of the film, kind of awaiting the Jennifer Lawrence vehicle to really kick in and start, which it never does, right?
Although you get a lot of Lawrence. Supposedly 66% of the screen time is on her face.
Yes, yeah, I'm
Which
sure.
is,
I'm sure that's
probably
right. Yeah.
unprecedented.
Yeah. But look, I love her usually. I think she looks fantastic in front of the camera, and she's a fascinating performer. I just didn't think she had all that much to do with this role.
Well, it's hard when 66% of the film is your face, but you don't have dialogue. When you're just looking at things going like, that is even freakier than 2 minutes ago. I think she does that well.
And being very passive a lot of the time, frustratingly so, I think. And, clearly it is about this very complicated relationship between this kind of metaphoric domineering artist and the long-suffering woman.
Well, intriguingly,
very
Ed
interesting.
Harris and Michelle Pfeiffer, they get to act their roles
and
as though they're in an Edward Albee play,
And they're-
whereas Javier Bardem and Jennifer Lawrence are definitely simply metaphors. They're only serving the script.
Yes.
So the other two can give like realistic performances, while these two have to give Aronofsky performances.
Well, that's kind of what I mean about the tonal uncertainty in this film. And Michelle Pfeiffer and Ed Harris are in a different film, really, to Lawrence and Bardem.
Well, they're specifically in the first half of this film.
They are. But I just think there's a kind of tension between what they're doing as actors and what everyone else is doing as actors in this film.
Yeah.
I really loved Michelle Pfeiffer in this.
Yeah, me too.
Actually.
Me too. She was great.
She's fantastic.
That sort of 10-minute scene just between her and Jennifer Lawrence was really
all of the
electrifying.
scenes between her and Jennifer Lawrence are really, really good,
Yeah.
actually. And the kind of slow reveal on Ed Harris's character. I mean, they're two great actors.
Yeah.
With really nice, interesting small roles.
Okay, here's the moment for me that I only figured out a few days later, sort of summed up the movie for me. Because it was a baffling moment when I saw it, and then 3 days later I went, oh my God, I see what that moment was about. So Jennifer Lawrence is in the house, it's deep into the third act, everything's going to hell.
Yep.
It's like it's become a Bacchanalic party.
Yep.
The people are still sitting on the sideboard. So the sideboard hasn't cracked yet,
Yep.
but it's getting there.
Yep.
Because once the sideboard's
in a bad way.
Yeah, it's in a bad way.
Yeah.
A guy comes up to her and cracks onto her.
Yeah.
And she dismisses him twice, and by the third time, he calls her, pardon me, a cunt.
Yep.
And it's obviously socially way out of bounds. It's like crazy because she's politely, let him know no. And he's quickly, and 3 days later, I was like, oh my God, he's an internet troll. He's, someone on the internet who is nice and tries to crack onto you like in a chat room. And the moment you say no,
him.
they suddenly turn around and reveal themselves to be the world's most awful, yucky troll, and they call you a cunt.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's what the film is full of. That's why I would need to go back and see this film, because I bet you it's full of moments of Aronofsky. This is Aronofsky's troll. This is Aronofsky's Trump moment. This is Aronofsky's specific moment about Sean Spicer. This is Aronofsky's specific moment about, the financial collapse or whatever. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
And I think they're full. They're in the film, but the first time you see the film, you're trying so hard to grasp anything that you won't see those things.
Well, and I think the problem is that I'm sure all of that. I didn't realize that when I didn't see that personally when I watched the film, but I'm sure that a lot of that content is in there. It's just so jumbled together in an undisciplined way that ultimately I kind of switched off and didn't really find it satisfying.
How do you think this film is going to go over, like
Box office
wise? Because here's the thing, like on the surface of it, this film has no hope.
Yeah.
Even with Jennifer Lawrence, because it is out there and it is about as uncommercial as possible. But then again, I thought the same thing when I saw Black Swan, and Black Swan made $200 million and was nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars.
But I think Black Swan is a far more straightforward. I know it's
compared to this, yeah.
in relative terms.
This is like Black Swan without any realism.
Absolutely, and Black Swan still works as a sort of conventionally structured psycho thriller. I know that the last reel, you know, gets fairly expressive and abstract, but it still works as a linear psychological thriller in a way that this film just doesn't at all. I think if I was to guesstimate,
there's nothing about this that's conventional in the slightest.
No, if I was to guess, I'd say it has a half decent opening weekend, a reasonably decent first week, and then tanks.
And then tanks after that. I think you're right. I think the marketing has been so good for it. Yeah. You know, those posters.
It's a great poster.
Yep. You know, it's been so clever. I mean, look at the image behind us. Plus, you've got the Jennifer Lawrence fans.
Yep.
So I think you're right. I think it's going to be a big opening, and then reviews are going to be 50-50. There are going to be people who love it, hate it. But I think you're right. It's then going to tank, because I think word of mouth is going to be generally, don't see this movie.
Yeah. No. Look, and this is look, and you know. And well, and that's what this is an auteurist's uncompromising approach to a pet subject matter.
It's an indulgence.
It's an indulgence, and you need to work pretty hard as a viewer and an audience member of this film. You need to work to stay in there. I think it's not an easy film to sit through.
No, particularly with that shooting style. I mean,
absolutely,
it's hard to describe how much of the frame her head takes up constantly.
Yes.
You know, and it's kind of
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, it is. It's true. Like, I loved it, but that's not to say that I can recommend it to everyone. You know, it is highly specific people that I would tell to see this film, and a lot of people I would say don't see this film.
Yeah, I think it's a really, really interesting failure as a film.
Yeah. There you go. That is a spoiler alert episode of Darren Aronofsky's film Mother. It is probably, when you're watching this, out now in cinemas worldwide and might not hang around for too long. Now, we could be totally surprised. I mean, this could theoretically be this crazy hit. It could make $100 million, yeah.
I would be very surprised if this makes $100 million. We will shortly find out.
Let's be really nerdy.
All right, okay.
Let's
punt.
Yeah, let's have a punt on what? Like American domestic box office.
All right, you go first.
Total.
Yeah. No.
65.
Okay.
$1 million by the end of its theatrical run, domestic American only.
All right, I'm gonna say 42.
You heard it here. Thanks for watching Jim Flanagan and CJ Johnson on Watch This.